Hello guys, we continue studying the match between Botvinnik and Smyslov of 1954, and today we will look at the game number 4 in the match and the third decisive game, because the game number 3 ended in a draw. Also, before we start, I would like to say that finally I got my new microphone, and I hope that now the sound will be much better and there will be no complaints regarding this. Please let me know in the comments if you have felt the difference between the previous sound and the new quality of the sound. And now we will begin. d4, d5, c4. In the previous game, when Botvinnik was white, as you remember, there was Nimzo Indian with 4 e3. Botvinnik tried, Smyslov tried knight f6, c4, e6, knight e3, bishop b4. But now he switches back and tries his other weapon, Queen's Gambit accepted. He took knight to f3 and went a6. Alekhine, I think, was the player who introduced this move. Well, the main continuations have always been knight to f6. There are some other moves too, e6, but the knight f6 is of course the main move. And after e6, we have e3, we have crossroads. Bishop g4 is a possibility, but the main move has always been e6. For instance, bishop c4, c5. These are the main positions of the Queen's Gambit accepted with e3. But black tried a6, e3, bishop to g4. This is the idea of this variation, so that the bishop can simply be developed without much trouble. And after bishop c4, e6, queen to b3. I think that just to castle first makes sense as well. White went queen b3 though, black took, and now went b5. Bishop to e2, and now knight to d7. And this is quite a rare move that was tried by Smyslov for a few times in this match. Previously people used to go c5 here, and after dc5, knight to d7. It proved not to be so easy to equalize. For instance, knight c5, queen c2, rook c8, and now it goes knight c3. And what happens if black captures on c6? Please take your time and think a little bit. That was a short warm-up. Indeed, knight to b5 is extremely strong here, so black should not really play this way. Black should just go b4, but these positions tend to be somewhat preferable for white, even though of course there is a lot of play. Knight to d7 was played in the game, so white tried a4. In the next game of the match, Botvinnik actually came up with a slightly different move. Well, he went a4 before, now he went knight d2. In the next game, game number 10, he went f4 here. Knight to d2. Knight to f6, knight to e4, pawn to c5, knight takes f6. There was also a move knight takes c5, but let's not get in detail regarding in the opening. I would rather prefer to concentrate on the middle game and not the end game. White took, and here black captured with the queen, which is rather committal. I think black could have just taken with the knight after dc5, bishop c5. It's quite an interesting position when I think that the bishop pair is compensated by the slightly weakened king side. Probably white's position is a bit preferable, because it's quite easy for him to develop his pieces with bishop d2, maybe rook c1, maybe rook d1, but black also has quite a lot of ideas. So queen takes f6, and I would like to ask you, how did white continue here? What should white do? Indeed, it's very strong to try to open up the center with d5. And now, if black just developed, after say takes, just queen to d3 for example, I think black would have a lot of difficulties, which is why he tried to play e5. Now white made another strong positional move. Black perhaps wants to go knight b6 in some positions, followed by some c4 ideas, maybe rook to d8, c4. So white tried a5, taking the square away from the bishop, from the knight, sorry. And after bishop d6, e4. The point is that at some point black could try to play f5, and then, depending on circumstances, either f4 or maybe e4. And now white takes away the possibility to play e4, leaving black with the only idea to go f5, f4 at some point. So far, the bishop would just stay on e3 when it defends the pawn on f2 and attacks the pawn on c5, so it's not that easy and that obvious for black to play f5, and it's not very obvious what would black actually achieve. Castles bishop e3, and here Smyslov came up with a pretty creative solution, which however seems to be rather over-optimistic. I think that, well, take your time and think how black should have continued. What are the moves you would consider? Indeed, it would have been very interesting to go queen to h4, in my opinion. The point being that after g6 and f5, then f4, pretty complicated and double-edged position would arise, with black having quite a lot of counter chances of his own. But c4 was played instead in the game. I think that this move is somewhat over-optimistic. Black ends up without a pawn, and there is no obvious compensation. Black went queen g6 to prevent white from castling on the king side, as well as on the queen side. But was it worth sacrificing a pawn for that purpose? I think we can safely claim that not, because white couldn't castle long anyway, because this pawn is extremely weak, and I think it would just be lost, after which well, the queen side would have been pretty weakened. White cannot, of course, castle king side at the moment, but he can just do an artificial castling, castle by hand, and that's what he did. King f1, f5, rook to g1, queen to h5, rook to g2. And now it became apparent that black's play just ended here, and the pawn sacrifice didn't really prove worth it. Now white just needs to play king to g1, king to h1 to consolidate his position, and then start trying to use the g-file for some attack. Black went knight to c5, queen to d1, queen to h4. I guess f4 immediately could have been played too, but it's not that easy to just close this position, trying to, well, abandoning the last hopes for some counterplay over the f-file and so on. Queen h4, king g1. Finally, Smyslov did play f4 though. Bishop to d2, rook to b8, king to h1, rook to f8. Some maneuvers, rook to f6, queen g1, bishop f8. Smyslov already was in a severe time trouble, and it does affect his decisions. I think that black didn't really have to remove his bishop from this perfect blockading square, just to go back later on in a lot of moves. I think black should have simply played maybe rook to f7 defending these pawns, and could have tried rook f8 or something else. Bishop f8, rook to g4, queen to h5, queen to g2, queen to f7, b3, king to h8, rook to g1, and now rook to d6. The problem is that while the rook does block the pawn, it doesn't really defend the pawn on b4, the pawn on b4, the pawn on e5, and the knight. So obviously it was preferable to keep the bishop on d6 rather than anything else. And after some maneuvers, bishop c1, knight d7, bishop b2, rook e8, queen f1, white is clearly much better, but there is no obvious straightforward path to the victory, so white chooses the right plan, the right idea. The opponent is in the time trouble. In such situations, the best practical decision is just to keep the tension on the board and keep creating some small threats, keeping the opponent alert and alarmed all the time. Black went queen to h5. What would happen after bishop a6? Indeed, bishop a6 wouldn't be very good, because after knight f6, the rook's attack, if the rook goes anywhere, this pawn would be hanging, and black would be able to complicate the position quite a lot. So white just went queen g2, queen h6. Once again, they just continue maneuvering. Bishop to f6, rook to g4. And now I think black should have defended better. What is the way? How should black continue? Black should have gone bishop to d8, attacking this pawn, keeping an eye on it, and keeping counter chances. The problem is after his move, bishop to d2, knight to f6, rook to g2, rook to d7. White, as you see, just consolidated his position, and now loss of this pawn or this pawn is more or less imminent. So White just managed to capture later on, and in a few moves, White just started advancing the pawn of his own. But at the same time, I think that black still keeps some counter chances, and I'd like you to think how to continue as black, how to try to get some counterplay, because it's very important to defend as stubbornly as possible, even though sometimes you may end up in a bad position, but you need to keep working hard, keep trying hard. Indeed, black's only chance is a desperate attack on the king side. g5 is the right move, and it was played. I think white had a lot of good possibilities. For example, queen c4 was quite tempting, and after, say, queen h3, d6, bishop d6, queen c6, white did sacrifice a pawn, but he's attacking the knight as well. If the bishop goes somewhere, then there's an idea to take on b4 and then take on e7, for instance, on f6, sorry, say take, and now take, and the position's falling apart. But at least black was trying to create some threats and counter chances. White went queen d3. As you see, Botvinnik also couldn't cope with this pressure, and gave black some counter ideas. Bishop to d6. This game was rather tense, of course, even though it may not seem so. It may seem that white just won very easily. Queen to e2, rook to g7, queen to d1, queen to h4, bishop e2, g4. Black is, as you see, trying as desperate and as hard as possible. That's exactly why these people were playing the World Championship match. They never want to lose, and they resist as well as they can. And now, if you imagine that you are white, your task would be to figure out how to deal with these ideas, how to stop black from creating significant threats of his own. Botvinnik found a very good defensive move here. Of course, it wouldn't be good to take on g4, because after knight e4, black manages to split the structure, and after, say, bishop e1, knight to g5, there are already a lot of ideas. For instance, f3 is threatened, e4, f3 is threatened, this bishop would join the attack, and if f3, then queen h3. And this pawn is hanging now, e4, and then f3 is hanging, so white, I think, has quite a lot of problems. As you see, even in such good and promising positions, white needs to be very precise. Bishop to e1 is the right defensive move, which keeps the square of on g3 controlled. h5 takes, and I'd like to ask you how to what is the right continuation, how does white convert here? You may need to calculate quite a bit, so please pause the video if you want. If you have paused the video and found the solution, my congratulations, you did an amazing job. If you wanted just to see what happened, then let's take a look. White went for the rather decisive actions. He took on g4, sacrificed a piece for a moment. The point is that after rook to g4, f3, the bishop, which was hidden on e1, finally joins the game with a decisive effect. And after rook to g2, white just captured the queen. White was winning anyway. For example, after rook g3, which could be somewhat more stubborn, bishop g3, fg3, there is, I think, I love the continuation. Rook g3, white can just simply capture, there's no threats. Or, for example, if black tried queen to h3 here, white simply be able to take, and now just play something like queen to c2. The point being that the queen can also join the game from f5 as well as from c6. For example, an idea of queen f5 followed by queen h5 would be decisive. White is winning anyway. Black tried to take, now white captured on h4, takes, and this combination may seem somewhat suspicious because white was a few pawns up and he ended up a piece down, but white has a lot of passers for a piece, and if at least one of them would be holding one of black extra pieces to the defense, making the piece passive, then the remaining two pawns would of course win very easily. There's 1, 2, 3 passers. Knight e8, a7, knight c7, king f1. The king is just coming all the way up to the queen side, to c4, and after king g7, king e2, king f7, white just picked the pawn on b4, because such threats as bishop e1 as well as bishop c5 cannot be parried, and black just resigned here. I did somewhat less analysis and annotations than in the previous games. I would rather try to keep it a smooth story or something like this, and I hope that now the sound is better and you can enjoy the videos much more. Please let me know in the comments what you think about the sound as well as about the quality of the videos, and I look forward to seeing you in the next videos devoted to the same topic, and of course in the other ones. Thanks, subscribe, leave comments, bye bye.